If you're telling me that Almost Famous is 14 points better than Sunshine, you're high off your ass. Welcome back to EnterTheRealWorld.com. This is There Will Be Movies, Volume 1, 2000-2009. We are talking about 25 of our favourite movies that came out in said time period. My name is Matt Waters. I'm joined by Ben Phillips. Ben, how are you for episode 10?
Episode 10.
I'm so confident about these numbers. How are you?
It's episode 10. I'm good. We're two-fifths of the way through.
Sure, that's a way of looking at it. An accurate way of looking at it. So episode 10, we're going to do Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a title that Charlie Kaufman was real intent on not being catchy. I believe his original title was 18 words long, and he said he didn't want it to be able to ever fit on a marquee. So
Is it the full quote from Alexander Pope that he used the title, or is it something else?
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen the 18-word title.
But... I mean, because the full Alexander quote post is, "How happiness is the blameless vessel's lot, the world forgetting by the world forgot. Eternal sunshine and spotless mind, each pair accepted and each wish resigned."
I would imagine it was Eternal Sunshine and the Spotless Mind, each pair accepted, each pair resigned would have been the full title, but who fucking knows. So we both selected this, but I'm just gonna say I think this will lean slightly more towards you than me. I think it is extremely good, but I know a lot of people heavily revere this, like adore it, and I don't have that feeling about it, but I think as an exercise in filmmaking it's great, and you've got some excellent performances here, but I'm just like, I kind of look at this and I can't help but nitpick it and think how I would have done it, how I would have remixed it and made it slightly better. But
you think you're better than Charlie Kaufman?
No, I think I'm better than Michel Gondry, who directed this, and none of his movies from this decade were in contention other than this.
It's so weird. Like Michel Gondry, he's made this like one masterpiece, and not to say that I don't think like Be Kind Rewind is like a lot of fun.
I found that like, profoundly disappointing.
Sure, in comparison to this, it is, and like Human Nature's his other movie that he did with Charlie Kaufman, but it's also like the worst Kaufman script of like this decade.
Yeah. Do you know what's probably the best thing he made this decade? Dave Chappelle's Block Party. You should see that. It's great. Kanye West is like the opener. Imagine such a world.
I think we skimmed over it when we discussed Spike Jonze, is that this is the second kind of like big music video director.
And you can tell.
Yeah, I mean like these two, I mean obviously like Michel Gondry's kind of most famous, he worked with people like the White Stripes. York is probably one of his big ones. He did Polyphonic Spree, which makes sense because of this movie. He's done Radiohead videos. He's did the Mad World video for Michael Andrews and Gary Jules. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but it is a kind of weird filmography where this is like the banger and then everything else is like, You don't see a lot of that where someone's only got one good one in them. But he did. Or maybe Charlie Kaufman had a really good fourth one in him and Gondry happened to be the one. Although it was Gondry's idea, so...
Yeah, but it's interesting because obviously like Charlie Kaufman's like after this he does Synopticity and he does Anomalisa and he's got I'm Thinking of Ending Things coming next year, so we'll see how good that is. But like it's not like Charlie Kaufman's still got good movies coming out after this, whereas Michel Gondry kind of...
This is it. He's here.
They're visually interesting, and I mean, like, I don't think, as I said, Big Kind Rewind is terrible. I don't think Green Hornet is an abomination. It was that weird moment where everyone was so like, we had that hot moment after Batman Begins comes out, and everyone's just like, we should make all the 1930s heroes into movies.
Give me the shadow or give me death.
The Spirit.
The Spirit, Jesus, with the guy from Suits in it, right?
I can't remember. I just remember Samuel L. Jackson plays like a squid. Or Gabriel Macht.
Yeah. Harvey Specter. Yeah, he is the Spirit, isn't he?
Scarlett Johansson as Silken Floss.
Fucking hell.
That was directed by Frank Miller, who thought he had enough experience from co-directing Sin City.
Mm-hmm. So Charlie Kaufman, would that make him the first time we've had a repeat writer?
Yes, I do believe so.
Because we firmly set a rule about no repeat directors, but we set no such rule for writers.
That was the thing where I was like, oh, this is going to be cheating because they do feel very much like of a similar brain.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, but I really want to do adaptation, and I also really want to do Eternal Sunshine, so...
Well, fair enough. I mean, you know, I think films are generally a product of a director more than they are of a writer, even if the script is the strongest bit. it. I feel so much of its identity is down to the director.
It's that, I mean, there is that historical precedent of, like, film is a director's medium, TV is a writer's medium. And I feel like both have kind of, like, dipped and swayed in terms of that, and this is one of those stronger ones where I feel like there is definitely a writerly voice that you can feel in this movie.
Yeah. So Michel Gondry and Pierre Bismuth get story credits, but the screenplay is by Charlie Kaufman. Released March 19th, 2004 in the US, 30th of April 2004 in the UK, so one day after my 15th birthday. There you go.
Oh, you could have gone see it in the cinema.
I could have. I did not. I did not go see this. I was not even aware this was a thing until after it had come out and gotten whatever scores it got and all that. So you talked about 2004 in general when we did Shaun of the Dead, but if you want to just talk about this movie's opening weekend and what it sort of like was stacked up against and stuff.
Actually, genuinely surprisingly, this opened at number 2 at the UK box office. I mean, obviously, it's hard to say because like, quite often in the UK, when movies that have got awards buds come out, they will do it in kind of January, February time, and they'll get like a bump because they've got all the nominations and they know how it's faring critically. Whereas this is out in April, Oscar season isn't even there, so you have to imagine that this is coasting off the fact that Kate Winslet is kind of like British acting royalty, and Jim Carrey is
American acting royalty, of course.
Yeah, but Jim Carrey's probably like he's coming off of Bruce Almighty. He's coming off of like just the hottest possible box office run that you can imagine.
King of the 90s.
King of the. I mean, like his 93. Is it 93 or 90? He's 94.
What, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura in 1 year?
Yeah,
in 1 year. An untouchable year for an actor, in my opinion.
He's so firmly cemented himself
he's
as
still pretty much got it at this point. I would say it's sort of in the couple of years after this where it starts to go on a decline. And
yeah, it's like he's got How the Grinch Stole Christmas in 2000, Bruce Almighty in 2003.
Decent.
Yeah, like he's still doing the big Jim Carrey performances, and like you have seen Truman Show and Man on the Moon prove that he can do a little bit more dramatic, and you've also got like Cable Guy and Me, Myself and Irene, which are a little bit darker than his normal fare. But this is like...
I feel this kind of seduced him, though, to go down, to really try and explore that path of, like, what if I just went full dark and made the number 23 and stuff, which I kind of like that movie, and I'm embarrassed that I like that movie, but it's not, like, you know, what you're looking for, really. And then he just vanishes into things like Yes Man and...
But Yes Man feels like such a blatant attempt to go back to his, like, 90s glory days.
Yeah.
Sit down to the fact that, like, it's literally the same conceit as Liar Liar without the supernatural stuff in the background.
Pretty much. But yeah, I mean, Jim Carrey is a draw. There are many stories about how the title was changed to be less poignant when released internationally, and that coupled with Jim Carrey being in it made people think it was a comedy and they were profoundly disappointed. But yeah, I feel Jim Carrey brings people to the yard.
Yeah.
And as you said, Winslet is Winslet, so...
Yeah, I mean, like, so it opens number 2 behind Kill Bill Volume 2, which has been playing for 2 weeks at this point, so people still want to go see it. Like,
I know it's long, Ben, but it's not 2 weeks long. It may feel it if you're me, but, you know.
Eternal Sunshine, $1.48 million in the UK. I keep sitting here going, like, should I translate this into actual British money, or do I just do what Box Office Mojo tells me?
Look, man, we're doing these in the order of US release, but you're talking about UK years, and it's all fucked.
I'm doing this so completely confusingly. Number 3, Secret Window, and I think we're so close to the actual release of Shaun of the Dead came out in the UK that 50 First Dates and Scooby-Doo are still hanging out. In fact, Shaun of the Dead's number 6, so both these movies are still kind of like hanging out in the box office. So.
It's good that you're not going to say the words Lord of and The Rings anymore whenever we're summing up.
I know, but like, we're getting close to the point where it's going to be, oh look, it's a superhero movie, and then
at some point it'll be The Hobbit, and we'll never escape.
The Hobbits didn't do well.
Did they not? Did they not make it?
They did well, but not like what they should have done.
All right.
On terms of like the growth multiplier you should have applied to, like, if the Lord of the Rings movies came out nowadays, they would be doing like kind of $2 billion kind of region, I imagine.
Do you want to hear something wild?
You haven't seen any of the Hobbit movies?
No, I've seen all of the first 2 Hobbit movies, and I don't think I have seen more than 5 minutes of Twin Tower or Two Towers. So.
Sweet. Oh, Matt, watch Lord of the Rings.
I've seen the first one in like chunks a dozen times, and I've seen the end of the third one what feels like 500 times. Sorry, ending number 1 of 20. But yeah, never seen that second one. I think I've caught like a scene where like Gandalf's talking to a lady, and that's it. That probably doesn't even happen. I'm probably misremembering. It's probably Aragorn talking to a lady.
Is this where I just send you, like, just watch Helm's Deep, please?
Yeah, people invoke that all the time, and I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever you say. Anyway, Lord of the Rings will probably be discussed on this website at some point, but we're not here for that.
Like, we purposely avoided it for this podcast, even though it is, like, a towering achievement of the 2000s.
Which of the three would you put on this list if we didn't have the restrictions that we do and we were just doing anything?
I don't think I put one down, because I think they are very much, like, one narrative.
So you'd rather put none of them than one of them?
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing where, like, I'm one of those people that thinks they're better than the books, because the films actually, like, interweave the stories together, where the books are just like, here's 6 books. Each one's got, like, a beginning, middle, and end. And I'm like, oh. Whereas the movies make you go, like, oh, when there's a lull in tension, it will cut to another one. I'm like, yeah, I'm back excited again.
Yeah. Well, speaking of excited, there's no transition. Back to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So it's 108 minutes long. Another one where I think it could have used maybe another 10 minutes somewhere to... It's not that it's too short, but it's surprisingly short, I would say. Maybe just movies started getting audaciously longer.
Yeah, movies, that's definitely what happened. Movies got longer.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be we could do a tight 90-minute movie.
Yeah, that's dead. Everything's 2 hours now, at minimum.
No, it's not. Everything's 2.5 hours now.
Yeah. Oh.
I went to watch Midsummer the other night, and I was like, oh, this is going to be like maybe 2 hours, whatever it is. I'll be home in time for dinner or whatever it is. And then like I was like, oh god, it's 2.5 hours. I didn't feel it. Like, it's not like I felt the movie was aggressively long, but it's like I got out, looked at the clock, and I was like, oh, that was literally 180 minutes long.
Did it end your relationship? I hear it's been breaking some people up.
It didn't break my relationship because I didn't watch it with my partner. I just came out feeling like I'd been emotionally bludgeoned for 2.5 hours.
Right, cool. Bullet dodged. A budget of $20 million. It made 72.3, which isn't that high given what a known thing this is, but I feel it is a cult favourite. And
it's made its money back.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
course.
they would have been disappointed in America because it only did 34 domestic. So like, if you take in the normal account of needs to do double its budget pretty much to break even, so it probably didn't just about break even. But I also feel it's one of those things where like, if this movie had come out tail end of 2004, they probably would have had like a sustained Oscar bump kind of going on to kind of like push them over any numbers. And you know that this is one of the best selling like DVDs from 2004.
Of course. Right, so I have drawn some conclusions from my research into this movie that Michel Gondry is a fuckbag. Let's discuss. So he and this movie, as I said, the story credit, they discussed this idea of erasing someone from your mind after a painful breakup way back in like the 80s, just as just friends talking. And Bismuth, he proposed as a social experiment, sending a card to people telling them that they'd had part of their memory erased or something like that, just as like, hey, what would people do, man? French people are weird. So Kaufman was asked to write this as a movie while he and Gondry were working on Human Nature, but he put off writing it because he wanted to complete many other projects, including adaptation. And during the time that he was putting off writing it on purpose, a little movie called Memento came out, which also features heavily a backwards narrative and playing with memory and that sort of stuff. And Charlie Kaufman saw that and was like, well, we're fucked. I guess we're going to kill this movie, huh? And then the studio were like, no, you're going to fucking make this. Stop dicking around and write the movie, Charlie. So he did. And I feel on some level he, from that moment onward, was trying to sabotage it and was never really that into it, because the story is about, wanting the title to be difficult. And
we've watched adaptation. We know he's notoriously anti his own stuff and massively self-conscious. I also think this is far and away his best script.
Really?
I think adaptation is more audacious in structure and kind of playing with a meta-narrative. I think this script has so much kind of emotional heft behind it and so much kind of said in subtext that I think it's everything in this movie to me kind of comes together to elevate it, and I'm stunned that it only got 2 Oscar nominations.
Well, fair enough.
In my opinion, this should have got lead actor, lead actress, script, director and picture nominations.
Editing, maybe.
Editing, certainly special effects in some ways as well.
Although a lot of it's practical. So anyway, speaking of adaptation, Joel is semi-autobiographical by Kaufman. He put a lot of himself into it. And
Isn't this based on one of his relationships, or is it?
Potentially, yes. And Nicolas Cage was in fact first choice to play Joel. And yet, I would say he's nothing like Charlie Kaufman is in adaptation. But I don't know, maybe just a bit of a sad person who's self-critical, but beyond on that. Very different energy, but that's probably the different actors you're getting there. Jim Carrey, as we said, sort of cast... I don't know if he's cast against type, because, you know, he had done Man on the Moon and Truman Show, although Truman Show still has that manic energy, but this is very, very subdued.
I saw an interview where Gondry was like, they sat down to have a meeting with Jim Carrey, and like he'd just gone through a breakup, and basically told Jim Carrey, like, I want you to maintain this pain through production for a year until we start production on this movie.
Yeah, like, again, I'm thinking Michel Gondry's a dickbag. You stole my next note. Gondry also did everything he could to kind of suppress Jim Carrey's comedy instincts. Like, he let everyone else improvise, but told him he couldn't. He, like, called cut at the wrong time or action at the wrong time. Like, he kept him disoriented. Basically, just fucking with everyone in the movie for the sake of his art.
That makes sense. Like, to keep Joel disorientated, like, makes sense in my head. Obviously, like, if it caused psychological damage to Jim Carrey in the long run, massively dick move. But I can see why keeping...
Yeah, I don't feel great about filmmakers that are this way. I appreciate that this may have been the only way to get the result he was looking for, but I just immediately turned to the part where it's like, you're being an absolute asshole and potentially, like, I don't know if he's causing Jim Carrey any emotional trauma, but still.
I mean, like, at the end of the day, they are working together again, because Gondry directed at least a lot of season 1 of Kidding. So it's not like there's any ill will based around this.
No, I'm sure there isn't. But there's too many stories like this where actors are telling people about what a director put them through, and they're saying it so casually, but it's like, dude, the fuck. Kate Winslet also kind of against type, because she'd been doing a fuck ton of period dramas and stuff, and this is... I mean, Clementine is a manic pixie dream girl, let's be honest. And she was cast because she was the only actress who offered any criticism of the script, as opposed to just reading it straight. Similarly, Mark Ruffalo was cast because he didn't just read it, he, like, engaged with it and, like, was making suggestions of his own about, like, Stan should be, like, really into The Clash and, like, try and look like Joe and everything. Like, yeah, I think basically anyone who engaged with the material rather than just reading it won Michel Gondry over. Tom Wilkinson had a horrible time filming this and argued with Michel Gondry a lot, as did the cinematographer, or the lead cinematographer, as did the camera crews, as did the editor, as did Charlie Kaufman. So, I'm just saying, I think he's a difficult creative.
That would make sense. I can imagine, like, especially because he's coming from doing Human Nature, which I imagine probably wasn't quite as, like, emotionally charged in terms of, like, subject matter it was dealing with, and also being from a music video background where the visuals are the most important thing, whereas this, like, there's actors who are having to, like, emote, and there's... everything kind of has to mesh together.
I think he served the actors. Like, Kate Winslet talks about how much she loved making this, how it's her favourite performance of her own, how free she felt, because he was like, yeah, improvise, do what you want, but there are no, like, camera markers, there are no X's on the floor for them to stand at, so the camera crew were, like, breaking their own necks trying to, like, whip around and get a good shot of people, so they were having a horrible, horrible time. But
then, like,
it looks great, though.
Yeah, you see some of the shots of this movie, like, there's the scene where, like, just after Joel goes into his memories and is, like, reliving the last time we saw Clementine, and they're, like, running through the house, and she's, like, teleporting pretty much into different places, and it's all kind of, like, we're within one camera movement, and it's, like, I can imagine that being awful to shoot if, like, there's
staggering amount of this is practical, where, like, literally Kate Winslet is, like, running off somewhere else, and, like, there's even a scene where Joel, like, turns to her and she's not there, and they had to cut the audio because Jim Carrey didn't know where she was and went, Kate? So they had to dub over it or whatever. Ellen Pompeo and Tracy Morgan were in the movie and got cut against Charlie Kaufman's wishes. Ellen Pompeo was going to be Joel's ex. They allude to the fact that he's living with a woman when he meets Clementine.
Yeah, there's a deleted scene where he's on the phone to her, but in, like, the modern timeline of it, post erasure.
I think they have a one night stand off.
Yeah, they have a one night stand. He says, like, I don't think we should jump back into this. Which I'm just imagining, like, how weird it must be to have this process and have someone so intrinsic to your life removed, who you've been with, like, 2 years, and then to come back out and just go, like, well, I guess nothing has changed really for me emotionally since I broke up with this girl, so why don't I go sleep with her? Like, just this, like, weird, like, foggy headspace of, like, you know it's been 2 years, but you can't think about what happened in those 2 years.
What have I done for the last 2 years? Oh, I guess just drifted through life. Bang, bang, bang. Let's get into it. The movie opens with Joel impulsively catching a train out to Montauk Beach on Valentine's Day and keeps awkwardly catching the eye of Clementine at the beach, at the platform, on the train, and they eventually do get to talking on this train, and they both have a feeling of deja vu towards each other. I mean, I feel the reputation of, like, what this movie's about massively. I can't imagine seeing it not knowing what it was about, so I feel like every first time viewing is somewhat coloured. Like, you know what the deal is and why they feel this way towards each other. But I can't imagine just being completely oblivious to what's going on and just...
I wish my partner was in the room now, because she literally went into it without any knowledge of what it's about.
How is that possible?
It was quite funny for her to like be reacting to like the opening credits and go like, wait, she's in this. He's in this.
Oh, this is adorable. So he's got like a little sketchbook or a journal. It's kind of both, isn't it? Like, he draws, he writes, he just sort of...
Yeah, it's his journal, but he's got like, he's an artist as well.
Very Memento style. There are missing pages that he's not sure when they were taken out, and he's like, I guess this is my first entry in 2 years. Like you're saying, like the fog of just losing that much time of your life. And there are clues here, because like he gives the date at the beginning, and then when you later see him writing in the journal, it's a different year and stuff like that. Like, again, if you didn't know what's going on with the timeline here.
Yeah, like the movie is pretty clearly signposting the fact that like it is being told in reverse, somewhat. But
you
also,
can see why Charlie Kaufman saw Memento and was like, fuck.
I think this is cleaner than Memento.
It is, but you can see why he would think that. If it's like, so we got a present timeline and we got a recurring backwards timeline and there's missing time and journals with pages missing, and
it's weird because the movie is both entirely chronological, but part of it is continuously going backwards.
Yes. They also use her hair to signpost the movie and stuff. Her hair colour at the beginning is, or in the present, is Blue Ruin, which is a great name. And they talk about, like, Agent Orange and all these other ones. But yeah, you can tell what time it is based on her hair, and it is blue here. His narration during this sort of opening bit, it's all very, like, cynical about Valentine's Day and, like, how he wishes he didn't just fall in love with every girl that's nice to him. But then, like, when she's talking to him, she has the energy of, like, she's almost, like, all over him. And he kind of has a bit of a can you leave me alone vibe. And I guess they're going for he's a bit shy, or maybe it is that subconscious, like, knowing that he has some resentment towards her or something. But it reads to me very, like, could you give me some space, please, while she's incredibly full on towards him.
I took it as more like, he's an introvert, he wants to talk to her, but, like, everything about him is just kind of going like, God, I don't know what to do in this situation. It's not so much that he doesn't want to talk to her, but more that just kind of like...
he's not equipped to do it.
Yeah.
And she's just, like, has zero chill and does not give a fuck and will
like,
talk to anyone.
He starts to, like, kind of get into a groove for it, but then he'll say something like, you're nice, and then she go like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. And she punches him, which is very weird and entirely improvised, and Jim Carrey's real reaction there. So they have, like, this awkward parting, but then Joel spots her on the street while he's driving, and he takes her home. She invites him in, and is, again, like, fully, like... I don't know if she's actually propositioning him there and then, but she's certainly talking about it, and whether that's just sort of a, like, to try and keep him on his toes type thing, I don't know. He remains pretty closed off, but he gradually...
I mean, it really does, and I know that, like, this is a diagnosis that some people have expressed to me. She does feel very much like she has a BPD.
Yeah, I know. I think most people read her that way, and it becomes a little bit tricky when you consider the whole manic pixie dream girl stereotype. And I think it helps that she makes that little speech about don't apply me as your solution or whatever towards the end.
Too many guys think I'm a concept, or I complete them, or I'm going to make them alive, but I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind. Don't assign me yours.
And that helps tremendously.
It does help tremendously, and I do think that this is a so much more nuanced performance than, like, I mean, what are we saying is the quintessential, like, manic pixie dream girl performance? Like, we've obviously already discussed Almost Famous.
Well, it comes from Elizabethtown, doesn't it? Like,
it comes from Elizabethtown, but I feel like Natalie Portman in Garden State is another one that's kind of like, which is also this year. These kind of girls, and, like, there's two movies I feel that have a decent enough grasp on, like, the counterpoints to that, and it's this movie and it's 500 Days of Summer.
I was going to say Zooey Deschanel and 500 Days of Summer. A little bit Ramona Flowers.
I feel like we have to take the comic book if we're going to say it's like if we're discussing, like, the arc of Ramona Flowers. I think the important part is the comic book more than the movie, because the movie has to condense so much of that. But that's a conversation for another year.
Yeah, so she's they lay on the frozen lake together. It's adorbs as fuck, and he calls her as soon as he gets home, and then they go out on the lake like and everything, and it's all just so meet cutie. But then you get the weird, like, he takes her back to her house and she heads inside to get something, and Elijah Wood knocks at the window and is sort of like, hey man, what the fuck?
Elijah Wood doesn't get like a with or an and credit in this. He's just kind of like nestled in the credits. He's like the first other actor to show up. But then in the back of my mind, I'm just got that kind of like, you're coming off of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like, you are fresh off 3 of the biggest movies of all time. And apparently this has done nothing to your stature to, like, elevate you up above a level.
Nope.
I'm also, like, my question is, like, what was he doing? Because obviously, like, Lord of the Rings finished filming kind of, like, 2001, 2002-ish, I imagine. Because they filmed them all back-to-back and they started in, like, 1999, I think.
Yeah.
So, like, he must have been, like, sat doing not much for quite a long period of time.
Wait for that phone to ring. It's like, I've made these life-changing movies, but no one's going to see them for 3 years. Dick around and make the Faculty. Oh, that was way before this.
That was before that. It's like, because he has the 1-2 punch after Lord of the Rings of Eternal Sunshine and Sin City, which he plays kind of like vaguely similar.
Creepy little fucks. So then, 18 minutes into the movie or something like that, we get our opening titles. And inexplicably, Joel is weeping in his car, and his neighbour is very like, oh, good thing you got Clem. And the whole thing is like staged in a way where it's very clear from his body language that he and Clementine have broken up, and that's why he's crying.
And I think on the first viewing, if you don't know what the plot of the movie is, you assume it is we've skipped ahead
a year, yes, instead of the truth of
we've gone back 2 days.
Indeed. And he's exhibiting some very strange behaviour. He's like stumbling around his apartment, reacting to light and stuff. And, you know, these 2 guys drive past him in a van and like, oh, is that the guy? And then he passes out in his apartment and they enter, and it is Tobey Maguire and Mark Ruffalo, Hulk himself.
Well, they hold back on the Elijah Wood.
I confuse them so often. Tobey Maguire is the bad one. Elijah Wood is the good one.
Yeah, but they hold back on revealing Elijah Wood's face for quite a while. Probably, like, in part to, like, keep it as a reveal. But, like, every time you see him, he's put something on top of his head. He's off camera.
I'm just looking at my notes and seeing how many times I wrote the word Maguire instead of the word right now. It's great. I knew in my head, and I even said it right the first time, but it's just all over these notes. It's just Maguire. Not Spider-Man. Frodo. So, we then get Joel telling his friends, here's just David Cross for like 30 seconds or something, telling them about how he tried to get Clementine back with an early Valentine's present, and she just completely blanked him and was kissing another man who is not Tobey Maguire but Elijah Wood.
You have to keep it in now. You have to keep this
I guess I do. And eventually David Cross just flips, and against his girlfriend/wife's wishes, he pulls out a card and hands it to him, and it says that Clementine, I can't remember her last name and it's hard to pronounce, has erased you from her memory.
It's Krasinski?
Something along those lines, yes.
Krasinski or something.
Khrushchev's, I don't know, yeah. And so, of course, Joel goes down, he verifies this with the company, and you get Kirsten Dunst as the receptionist, and she's printing dozens of similar cards and telling person after person over the phone that, yeah, this offer has expired and all that, and it's all very, like, I like this kind of unexplained sci-fi, you know, like, stuff where they are completely disinterested in explaining how the thing works. It is just a part of the world, you know? I can't think of the other, like, major example of something similar to this. It was just like, yeah, we can do this, don't even worry about it. But yeah, I like that about it. And
but there's also, like, no other science fiction elements in the movie. Like, it's just this, and it's like...
But it's an impossible machine that allows this thing that would be... You would think it would be the biggest thing in the world, and it's just like, oh, there's just a company that just does this. As if it's like, oh, it's like Deliveroo, or like, oh, it's like Uber. You know? And it's like, oh yeah, they erase memories, don't worry about it. It's like, oh, geez, okay. And like, it being treated as so banal, but being this magical thing. I like that about it. And Charlie Kaufman wanted it to not focus on sci-fi. He wanted it to be about the drama and the emotion and relationships and all of this. Upon learning and verifying this is all 100% legit, I don't know if he's 100%, he's like, well, fuck her, I want to get it done too. So he asks them to erase her from his memory. And so he has to go and gather up bags of trinkets and photos and gifts and anything that would remind him of her, like tearing out pages of his journal, all of this stuff, and he has the procedure done, and we start to experience a series of like trippy memories and hallucinations. Now I'm skimming over a lot of stuff here just for plot recap, but this is a very intense sort of 20 minutes of movie making here, and
it's one of those movies where I don't think the plot's important. It's so much more like, because you can sum up the plot of what goes on in the memory erasing is Joel realizes quite quickly that he doesn't actually want to lose all his memories of Clementine,
and he's literally trying to fight the process.
And he's trying to fight the process, and so you kind of spend this time of him reliving his memories of like these past events and wanting to keep hold of them, him talking to a fictionalized version of Clementine in his head, and kind of like trying
it's
to
his
make
like ideal version of her, isn't it?
Yeah,
like she's flawless and just nothing but positive and charming.
And like, and sometimes it will like rear its ugly head of like the times they have fights, but then she'll come back and say like, well, I don't know, Joel, like we fought about this, I don't know why we fought about this.
But I think again you can tell from the hair, I think the ideal one has the like deep red hair, and then, you know, we see blue, orange, green, and even brown, I think, at one point in the memories. And again, a way that they sort of, if you didn't know, you might then piece together. When he's interviewed about how he met her, it's different to what we saw at the beginning of the movie. So it's like, here's where you could be like, oh, I guess he's met her after this has happened, or whatever. I've got to say, I feel you're going to vehemently disagree. I don't like this little stretch of the movie at all. I think it's a little bit too abstract and wanky for me. I like it much more when that change happens and it becomes more coherent as he is actually trying to fight the procedure. But when it's just a lot of him like having flashbacks to them explaining the procedure to him and just random memories and moments, I'm just not into it. It doesn't engage me. I find it a little bit too all over the place. And it's meant to be. I appreciate that, but
I do love this section of the movie, but I do think it isn't as strong as when he starts fighting back in earnest. And the core reason I don't think it's as good is purely because it doesn't have Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet on screen actually like interacting with each other. I think that's the biggest weakness of this part, is kind of like the movie has to do so much heavy lifting of kind of like getting you to a point of knowing what's going on, even though it's not going to explain like the actual science behind what Lacuna Inc. does or anything happens. It still does need to do some heavy lifting and say like, right, you need to bring all these things, you're gonna, and like kind of setting up the rough inklings of the fact that like memories are going to be erased, and then you can go back into an old memory and it'll be distorted or all these things. And they do this so quickly, and I think they do it really well. But I do think it is a lesser stretch of the movie, just in terms of it is much more about the editing and the directing rather than the two performances that I think are so central to like what makes this movie work.
Speaking a minute ago about the like mundanity of the machine, Ruffalo and Elijah Wood being so like bored by what they do, which is a crazy thing that they do, that they just sort of hang out and are just bickering like, oh god, this again, and inviting Kirsten Dunst over and like, you know, helping themselves to the stuff in the people's apartments and all of this. It's like, it really sells the idea that this is so dull to them. They've done it so many times, and the scale of it is revealed later on, I feel. Well, I mean, you know, hearing that woman over the phone wanting the procedure done for the third time in a month and seeing how many cards there are and all that, it does tell you that, but I feel it doesn't sink in the like enormity of what they do here until near the end. But you kind of got the in and out of his head plots, and out of his head get Elijah Wood's character confessing that he has been seeing Clementine and that he fell for her while she was unconscious and he stole her underwear, and it's all very, very bad. While they're talking about this, Joel, at times he is like semi-cognizant of what has happened. He's telling her that this memory is falling apart, and he's like, I'm erasing you, and he's like, yeah, I remember the procedure from earlier. But then at another moment he's like confused and he's like, how do I hear this voice? How does he know to call you there? Yeah, like, I don't know. It's like, for a minute it seems a bit inconsistent about how aware he is.
I think I think all of this stuff at the beginning is kind of like him realizing, because I think it takes like 2 times through for him having the conversation with Dr. Howard to realize that what the process is that's going on.
Yeah.
I think they do kind of like quite quickly. Again, it's in that sequence where he's very disorientated. Get to the point where like Patrick is talking about Clementine and talking about how he's copying this guy's.
Oh, it's so fucking creepy that, like, yeah, like, he goes over to Clem's house and she has the blue hair, so another hint at what's going on. And she says how she has this impulse to go to Montauk right now. And we see in his bag, he's got all of Joel's shit. And it's just so clear immediately what's going on here, that like he is abusing his position and what he knows about her, and you have to assume that he used some of what they did for her procedure to like seduce her, and then this is like, he's like, this is going to make it even more effective. Now I've got all of Joel's side of it, and like he quotes something that Joel said to her, and like
so he takes her to the ice field or whatever, and then basically like very robotically recites the like, I'm so happy I could die.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you get three versions of the scene, you get the kind of like semi-organic one where they go together and it's like their second time, they don't know why they're drawn to this place, or like that weird thing where like Clementine goes to it because Patrick took her there the night before or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get this Elijah Wood version, and then you finally finish up with like the original Joel and Clementine version, and you're like, it is so much more creepy when he's doing it robotically, and Joel is like an actual earnest admittance of love.
I cannot express how creepy this Elijah Wood character is that he would do. Like, that is an unfathomable abuse of not power. Well, it is a kind of power, but you know, just to manipulate her to that level is so fucking creepy. And yeah, this is where for me, I really like the beginning, and like I said, I don't love that like sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes there, but once he does start to actually say, I want to call this off, let me keep this one memory, and he keeps trying to explain the situation to Clem and be like, hey, and she's the one that suggests, well, just take me to a different memory. I love all of this. I think this is a really great concept of them literally on the run from like disappearing scenery, and like him trying to keep her there as everything around them vanishes and all this sort of stuff. And like you said, we see them on the lake again, but in completely different clothes. And it's great. What a great concept. Like, this is the movie in a sort of 10-minute span, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is wonderful. Again, I just can't say enough good things about Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet. Like, the fact he wasn't even nominated for Best Actor is like a genuine travesty.
Fuck those people.
I mean, like, so he was nominated for the BAFTA.
BAFTAs, of course, much better than the Oscars. I actually haven't really sat down and looked at a list of BAFTA winning things. I'm sure they've made bad decisions as well.
So the BAFTAs nominated Jamie Foxx for Ray, Jim Carrey for Eternal Sunshine, Johnny Depp for Finding Neverland, Leonardo DiCaprio for The Aviator, and Gael Garcia Bernal for The Motorcycle Diaries. Whereas the Oscars slate was Jamie Foxx as Ray, Don Cheadle for Hotel Rwanda, Leonardo DiCaprio for Finding Neverland, Leonardo DiCaprio for The Aviator, and Clint Eastwood for $1 Million Baby. And it's like, you could dump Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
I just think this is...
He's not even credited for Ocean's 11. He's that bad.
But like, I think this is so fundamental. This is my favourite Jim Carrey performance.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever been better than in this movie. Like, even when you watch something like...
I really like The Truman Show.
When you watch The Truman Show, he's still doing Jim Carrey, though.
But that's why I like it, is that you kind of get the full gamut. Like, you get the manic, look at me shit, but then you also get... It's not as good as it is here, but you do get a sneak preview of, like, Joel. Like, you can see where Joel came from when you watch the quieter moments of The Truman Show. But that's for a different decade.
Yeah, this is so much like...
It's so good. I can see why he started to consciously attempt to do more dramas, and then that didn't really work out.
But the thing is, I don't think he's done anything close to approximating this. I don't know if that's because he was so much better because he's bouncing off Kate Winslet, and Kate Winslet is a force in this movie.
She's so good, and it's like, I guess you just expect her to be good because you just know she's a good actress. But like, this is so different than anything she does.
I mean, it's like she lost to Hilary Swank for $1 Million Baby, which also ultimately won Best Picture at the Oscars, and it's like, Hilary Swank is good in $1 Million Baby, but like, this is still Kate Winslet's best performance ever. And if we're saying like this is Kate Winslet's best performance ever, and she is like one of the great actresses, but it's also like, is this before or after the whole extras sketch? This must be like the same year or like the year.
Extras was like 2003 or 2004, I want to say.
Office ends in 2003, I want to say.
I think so. Does Office end but the Christmas specials haven't happened, or?
I assume the Christmas special happened. Let's go to... So she is on Extras 2005, so this is the year before she does the Extras episode, where she famously says, I'm only doing this role so I can win an Oscar, because you win Oscars for Holocaust movies.
Jeez, yeah.
Or is it World War II? I can't remember if it's Holocaust or if it's just World War II.
Yeah.
And then what movie does she win the Oscar for? She wins the Oscar for The Reader, which is about her and her trial stemming from war crimes to do with a Nazi concentration camp, because the Academy Awards are a cliche. But yeah, Kate Winslet is tremendous in this movie. The fact she didn't win is awful. At least she won a few years later, but yeah, this is like, God, am I going to make this claim? I think this is my favourite acting performance from a actress this decade.
Wow. I mean, I'm not equipped. Like Joel talking to Clementine on a train, I am not equipped to engage you on this at this moment. But, I mean, very possibly.
I just think she is wonderful, because she has to play so many different things. Obviously, like, she's playing so many different versions of the character. She's playing the version that's trapped inside Joel's head and his ideal version, whilst you're also counteracting with the fact that she's interacting with Patrick and going through some kind of break because she's having a terrible time, and she feels violated when Patrick does the reciting of the words to her.
Yeah, like that's it's not that she consciously remembers, but like there is very clearly a strong negative like response when he does that, and like you get these hints that this doesn't work as smoothly as they would like you to think it does. And in this stretch, like you see Joel open his eyes briefly and tears are like coming down his face, because it's like internally he doesn't want this anymore and he is having a very, very bad time. But like to them it's just like, oh yeah, you just knock them out all night, have sex right next to them, eat all their stuff, do what you want, it's fine. Her suggestion of like taking her and hiding her in different memories works, because he starts putting her in memories that have nothing to do with her, thinking they're only targeting one she's in, so if I take her to a childhood memory, she's fine, they're not going to erase my childhood. And you get this really trippy sequence where you have a full-size Jim Carrey underneath a giant table and like forced perspective and a little bit of CG that doesn't look great anymore, and then Kate Winslet as like
1950s housewife.
Yeah, or like his mum's like hot friend or whatever. It's all a little bit creepy because he has the child impulses of like wanting the ice cream and like, why won't she pay attention to me and all that. But then also she's like flashing him, and it's like
yeah, because the previous scene is her going like, I remember this memory, this is when you looked at my crotch and wanted sex.
Yeah.
And then they immediately go from that memory into like this one, which doesn't seem like particularly like noticeable, other than he's having a bad time of it, and then she flashes her crotch at him again, and
it's like he slips between adult and child in this, and it's all very let's not psychoanalyze this.
Yeah, but like she calls him Baby Joel. This is the bit that feels the most like Michel Gondry's kind of like music video sensibilities. This would not feel out of place in like a Bjork video. So now we're in the bit where like this is when the music video sensibilities start coming in. What's your favourite one of the kind of like tricky?
I like the car when they're in the car and like he gets out of it and the car like, or it like disappears around him and stuff. You know, that one.
I think my favourite is when she's walking. So before this one, when she's walking up the street and he tries chasing her, but like ends up back at his car that he's parked on the side of the road.
Yes.
And each time he goes backwards and forwards, the words on the shop fronts start to fade and disappear. I mean, there's so many good ones, like all the books kind of like bleeding their letters.
Oh yeah. The books are very, very, very good as well. And like all of the like, it feels like a play. You know, like there's not enough light and there's just like a single like spotlight on an otherwise dark set. It's all so good. And he pissed off the crew with all of these requests as well by like not wanting it lit, and they're like, well, we have to fucking light it. They had to like hide light bulbs on the set to like provide any light whatsoever. But you know, finished product, great, so we forgive the man of his sins. You know, as I said, it's working, and the procedure suddenly halts, and this freaks Stan out, Mark Ruffalo, and Kirsten Dunst convinces him that they need to call the doctor. Howard, last name again, difficult.
I'm looking through the list of last names in this movie, and it's like Kaufman was just like, what if I make them the most kind of like Eastern European Jewish inflected names that I could possibly come up with? Yeah,
here's your Polish immigrants, motherfuckers. So the doctor, the man in charge, they call him in the middle of the night to come over. He is pretty angry with them because it's very clear they do this a lot where they fuck about, and he is expecting them to sit attentively and monitor all this stuff, and like they clearly never do.
They've gotten high, drunk whiskey, had sex.
Yeah, and Elijah's gone, and it's like Mary's not even supposed to be there.
Elijah's gone. Yeah, Mary is just the receptionist, and she's like, oh, I feel like I need to know what goes on with the job. And
her acting a stoned person trying to not be stoned is very good stuff. Where she's like over talking.
I think all of like these four characters, you kind of do get this like little subplot through it, are all really good.
They are, but like some part of me feels all of this is a bit. It's not that it's out of place because it really does all connect back up.
I think this really drives home the point of the movie. I think like if like the two titans of this movie are Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, but they don't get to interact with this little sub story that goes on. But this sub story is so fundamentally important to their emotional journey and as like offering like this is a bad thing that they do.
Yeah, it is. And like the movie is condemning the process very clearly. And yet, I don't know, they don't really face any that we can see criticism until, you know, the revelation that's coming up soon. But yeah, I feel the movie is 100% asking you to come down on the side of this is a very, very bad thing and no one should do this.
I mean, I think it's all the way through where it's just like it's that idea of like you are losing something that made you.
Exactly. Like you have to learn from things. And
every relationship you're in is supposed to be a growth period. And if you don't grow from relationships, then you're just going to be trapped in the same cycles over and over again, which is possibly an interpretation you could have of this movie.
We are here to analyse you all, and we are here to tell you definitively you should learn from your breakups and go become a better person. The Doctor, Howard. I don't want to call him Dr. Howard, because that feels very like...
It does, but I also don't want to say his surname. So Tom Wilkinson?
Sure, Tom Wilkinson is successful in restoring the procedure, but Joel continues to resist. He keeps moving to more deeply rooted traumatic memories and forcing them to drug him further. And this is where you get the moment of him like crying as they're drugging him.
I like the first one is kind of like standard teenage boy like repressed memory of him like jerking off and his bum
being caught wanking.
And Kate Winslet's laugh at this is tremendous. Like it's both that just kind of like, oh Joel, really?
Yeah.
And then followed by her laugh. It's so infectious and so like she gets to play so many different facets of this character, and I love it so much.
Yeah. This is also where you get them literally running away from the crumbling scenery. It's really good, and it's really sad watching him get bullied and seeing him as an adult, but like in the like kids' clothes. And,
I mean, that is the most devastating.
Yeah.
One of these is so he goes to an even more dark, repressed memory. He's bullied into killing a bird with a hammer.
I know. Oh, kids are the worst. They are the absolute worst.
That has to be a thing that happened to someone involved in this movie. That is so specific. It's so hyper specific that like it can't be something you just like come up with. This has to be something that someone knew happened. Or...
What you do is you reason with yourself. It wasn't you. It was your identical twin brother Donnie that did it. And you just repressed that shit for years. Yeah. Fun fact: the kid bullying him went on to play the lead in Ace Ventura Jr. or Pet Detective Jr. or whatever it is. So there you go.
That scene where like the little kid like twists his arm is fantastic because it's the whole like I'm not scared of you anymore because I'm an adult now, and then like the kid's just like no because you're in a memory, like you can't change this is how it works.
And you like see them become actual children that they're narrating over or dubbing over. They engage in like fake smothering, and it's a bit strange to me that they keep doing this. And like
I can't tell whether because I have done this with a partner as like a joke thing, but I can't tell whether or not it is the influence of this movie making me do this. Or whether or not this is something that I would...
Or the fact that you murder women and you have a deep desire to kill everyone, yeah.
No, I'm the one that's getting, like, smothered by the pillow.
Oh, you want to be murdered. Gotcha.
Deep psychological flaw in
We are going to deeply explore the id of Benjamin Phillips tonight.
Oh, let's not. Let's not do that. But yeah, I can't tell whether or not it's something that I do because I saw this movie when I saw this movie, or whether or not it's something that I independently would have done otherwise. It's one of those things where, like, has this movie had such a profound effect on me that it affects the way that I interact with relationships, which is very deep, and also kind of like I can't think of another movie that has affected me in that way that I could pull out a thing and go like, do I do this because of this movie?
When did I start killing women? Was it after? Disclaimer: Ben has never killed a woman that I know of. So
that would be awkward, wouldn't it?
It would. So Howard's wife drives over, and while Stan had like stepped outside to check something in the van or whatever, Mary, who has very clearly throughout this been in love with Howard,
like she's like, oh god, he's so amazing, isn't he? Yeah. Like even when
maybe
we
should call him. Maybe he should come over now.
He's so good. He's a genius.
Yeah, and She plants one off on him, and, you know, he knocks her back, but then doesn't. And his wife comes over, and you can see them through the window kissing. And Stan, just, for someone who's supposed to be some kind of scientist, a fucking idiot, as he, like, tries to warn them.
It's that thing of, like, he has no social skills whatsoever.
No. And yet enough to, like, score some hot Kirsten Dunst. It says a lot that the two technicians' girlfriends or whatever are both people who have been recently memory erased, doesn't it? Spoilers. And yet, it's also quite interesting that Stan is willing to, I don't know, protect his boss here rather than, like, be pissed that his boss...
It's the bro code.
Yeah, I guess. Fuck men. Fuck men. Kill them instead of women. So, yeah, you get this reveal that... Because she tries to be like, oh, I'm just a dumb girl with a crush, it was a one-time thing, and then the wife just drops this bombshell that, like, you know, don't be a monster.
You had him.
Yes. They had an affair. And she requested the procedure be done on her, and distraught, she goes and, like, finds her own file and everything. The script originally called for him also having pressured her into having an abortion against her will, which, great, horrible stuff. I don't know.
Who is it that says, like, you wanted it? Is it him that says that to her, or is it...
I don't recall anyone saying that, but I believe you.
No, I'm just wondering, like, whether or not he told her, you asked for the procedure.
Oh, yeah. Maybe Stan tells her. Someone tells her that she asked for it. I'm just thinking,
like, because could it be interpreted that, like, she was pressured into doing this,
but
she didn't want it, or maybe she went through it thinking that he would get it done as well. But,
I think he claims that she asked for it because she wanted to, like, remove the guilt from her head or something, or the pain of it. I don't know.
But the thing is, then and it's that thing where this is when the movie starts to really come down, because it's like, erasing this doesn't change the fact that you are attracted to this person.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to leave your job if you're doing this. Like, if you are doing something destructive, you can't just ignore this thing that's going on. You need to do something more drastic than that.
I almost wish that the line where she says that she was like, because I mean, she hears her own tape or whatever, where she says like she instantly was attracted to him or whatever, because throughout the movie, like, she's had this like such intense, almost embarrassing crush on him. It reads very like, oh, silly little girl, while he's like the adult who's not interested. But then when you find out that it's because there is this like lingering familiarity with him that intensifies how she feels, it's so brilliant. But then when you learn that like potentially she behaved exactly like this the first time around, it doesn't ruin it, but I kind of wish that line wasn't in there.
Well, it's because the movie's about cycles.
I appreciate that. It's just, I don't know, I like the idea that like she's being subconsciously influenced by memories.
I think she is. I think it shortcuts the relationship. I don't know what the time frame is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's only a couple of months, but like it does feel like maybe there was a growth in him realizing that he liked her, or like there was a growth in their flirting, whereas this feels like it goes from like 0 to 60 and like she just kisses him because he's there.
And she's still stoned.
And she's still stoned. But yeah, I think Kirsten Dunst is wonderful in this movie, because again, like much like Kate Winslet, she gets to play so many different facets of this, because she gets to do funny and breezy, and you think she's going to be like this nothing role, and then you end up finding, oh no, you're third billed for a reason. You're third billed because you get this crushing emotional arc in this movie where you find out that you are fated in some ways to like fall in love with this awful person who's made this terrible technology,
who did not follow the rules of Jeff Goldblum,
but who is also like willing to run away from the emotional damage he's caused to someone. Like, I will cover
himself of it.
Yeah, I will cover this up. I won't get the procedure done because I need to be aware that this could be a danger. But then he makes out with her anyway because he's awful.
And also that thing of like, oh, I wouldn't have it done. I would never have this done. But no, you should have it done. And again, like up until this like horrible reveal, I always had this feeling of like, this feels so out of place, and this weird like love triangle between Stan and Mary and Howard. But then when you get this all come to the fore, it's like, oh. Meanwhile, Joel arrives all the way back at his first meeting with Clementine in Montauk, and it is different to, you know, she's got the green hair. He sees her in the distance, and like it becomes very clear this is why they are both drawn to Montauk. And I think he knows at this point he's fucked, and there's nowhere he can hide her. And this, as it's been going backwards, and this is the beginning. So you just get this like beautiful extended goodbye, and then
it's like him grappling with the stuff that he does. He's narrating what they're doing, and like they're going through the motions of what they did on that first date, but also like commentating on it and like having this emotional reckoning of what happened, because like they meet on the beach at this party. They're like the only two people there who feel like outcasts. They break into.
I feel that's how every couple meet in every indie movie. They're people who feel out of place at a party and like strong relate, but still.
But yeah, like they break into like someone's summer house that is abandoned during February in Montauk.
Yeah, and them like running through the house, and it all just he's like so sad, and I feel she's very like, no, let's just run around, it'll be fun, and it's just so it's beautiful. And she says,
like you get these bits where like he's downstairs and like shouting from upstairs, and you can't see her asking these questions, and he's kind of like wandering around, and then the stairs fall apart, and the house collapsing, and then he goes like, and then I left.
Yeah, and Howard and Stan leave the next morning, and they're very like, oh, everything's cool, right? But like, I think they both know everything's kind of fucked. Mary quits, and she steals all of the patient files, and we see the beginning of the movie start to play out again, but we see past the point where Patrick interjected, and Joel and Clem drive towards his house, and they are listening to their own interview tapes.
This scene in the car where Joel starts hearing what Clem thinks about him, because Clem is brutal.
They're both brutal, man. I think he's way worse.
I think Joel is slightly softer.
I think he's savage, like, because he's really
snobby
about
They're
her.
both savage and they're both snobby, but I think some of the stuff that Clem says is like, because like she has no filter, and it feels like Joel starts from a place of saying like she's great, and then he does some like incredibly cutting critiques of her.
Them trying to like awkwardly ignore it, like leaving it playing while they're trying to like talk, and like he offers to shut it off, and she's like, no, it's only fair, you heard me.
Yeah, but like it's her one in the car where Joel's sat, because like without context of what's going on, Joel's like, is this a joke? Did you record a tape?
You pranking me? Yeah.
Have you recorded a tape in the 5 minutes you've run inside your house, just like psychoanalyzing me into this way? And then his tape where like that awkward moment where like I can't remember what the exact quote is, but then they just kind of like Joel just goes like, I wouldn't say that about you, I'd never say that about you, and then Clementine's just like, don't worry about it. Like, how do you do that? Because like you are saying that. Like,
exactly. Oh, I wouldn't think that, and I don't think that. Like, but you do, and you did, and you can't just be like, well, I didn't say it, so you shouldn't feel mad at me. And it's like, yeah, it's a really weird thing where like you're pissed at someone who is not the person in front of you, but
they are the person.
Exactly, or they're like destined to be them or whatever.
Or do you have the alternative theory that like because they've heard this and because they know the complaint's going in, but they're still in that kind of
soured their own memories.
No, not soured it, but like because they're going in the honeymoon stage, is this good?
Yeah, potentially.
That like they now have a knowledge of it, and they can work towards kind of like building the relationship. I don't think the movie comes out on either side.
Jonathan Hickman took a very different reading of this, wherein Moira just can't bring herself to be with her husband after twice living a life with him and knowing that he will never change from how she meets him and all of that. Whereas this is almost the opposite, where it's like, well, if we just vent all the stuff at the beginning, and it will be brutal as fuck. And that is like what Joel is seemingly proposing, of like, you know, even if we end up going down this path, there's too much here to just walk away from this, and like maybe knowing it, we can escape it, or like it can be out in the open. Because I mean, I feel, I'm not saying every relationship has unspoken truths, but like ones that have some problems definitely do. And I think brutal honesty in all of life would be incredibly helpful, but also potentially very damaging. But like, I think maybe there is something to that of like, if you get everything out there and let it sit and know it and accept it, and then try and like build something past that, and maybe it all goes terribly wrong for them and they end up back here, or they just break up or whatever. But yeah, it's a very lovely sentiment from Joel at the end, and I really love them like vanishing into the snow playing.
But that's the thing, is obviously the movie ends with what's the song that's playing over it?
I don't know, but the soundtrack is dope.
Soundtrack is dope. Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime with vocals by Beck is what closes the film. But it's the clip of them kind of like running through the Montauk snow on the beach, but it loops kind of like 3 times, and it's that kind of like, is this a cycle? Is this a self-destructive cycle where they won't change?
And then they also vanish into the snow, like as if the memory has faded as well.
Yeah.
And Kaufman had a very clear idea about what was wanted here, because he wrote in the ending of a much older Clementine, like 30, 40, 50 years in the future, having had this procedure done a lot of times over the years, specifically to keep erasing Joel. well. And I could just never escape, every time I've seen this or thought about this movie, the idea of revealing this isn't the first time either of them have done this. You know, because the whole thing hinges on, he learns at the beginning she did it, so he decides to do it. And it's definitively their first time through each. But I can never escape the idea of, but what if you found out they've kept doing this? And I'm not saying, like I said, that I think I could write better than Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry, but like, to me that is such an interesting idea, and I like that Kaufman had that instinct, but
I think
Gondry wanted that more like optimistic ending.
Yeah, I think that movie is so much more dour and so much more down. I like the kind of open endingness to this, is that like you can interpret it to be like they're just going to do the self-destructive cycle over and over again.
Yeah.
But you can also view it as they've learned from this. They are stronger as a couple now because they are going to have to head on engage with the flaws that they brought up in these tapes. And maybe the second time through is more successful. Maybe they do break up after a year and a half, or maybe they don't make it to date 3. Yeah. But that open-endedness, I think, is a benefit to the movie, because both interpretations can be true. It's the Schrodinger's cat of... but I think something more definitive would feel out of place for something that is kind of like as...
Oh, it needs the indie ending. The like, well, what happens next? But it definitely does come down on the side of condemning this procedure, whereas potentially Kaufman's original ending didn't as much. But
do you know what my favourite thing about this is?
What?
This technology exists, and it doesn't matter that like they've gutted this company and all these tapes go out. This technology still exists in the world. Like, yeah. that hasn't changed. Mary has sent out all the tapes to all people who've had it from this particular centre, and maybe this is like the first point of it. But like, it doesn't matter because no one's like gone like this technology should be illegal. This is going to carry on.
Maybe that happens. Maybe like the mass sending results in a lot of people suddenly being like, "Hey, this is fucked," and like the company goes under or something. But then like someone else buys the tech and does it in a different way. I do think on some level, Mary disseminating all these tapes and just dumping this huge emotional bomb on people is kind of fucked, because maybe for some people it works perfectly and they end up married to someone and then they suddenly get a tape where it's like, oh, this other girl is the one. Or, I don't know, it's not that I think that you should be allowed to be absolved of terrible things you've done, but imagine just walking around and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, you killed someone or something. And maybe they wouldn't allow people to erase, like, a murder. But I don't know, just the ramifications of like what could be dropped on you and how that could just blow your world apart.
Yeah, I feel sorry for the woman who like wanted to get rid of the pain of losing her dog.
Yeah,
and like she's like, you had a dog and it died, and he's like what? Like,
and it's like, you know, maybe it is bad to. I mean, I think we've agreed it is bad to not take those emotions and take them forward with you. But it's also a little bit fucked because these people have paid for this and signed up for it willingly. It's kind of a violation of that agreement to just walk along and be like, fuck you, your dog died. And like, I don't know, I feel that is a part of it that is a bit devil's advocate-y compared to the general reading of like, this procedure is bad. And I agree, one should not do this, but I also think once someone has done it, it is a little bit fucked to then turn around and be like, surprise, motherfucker. But yeah,
it's a gross invasion of their privacy.
Yes, and yeah, but ultimately I think it is a really cute ending. Like, every scene of Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet just standing near each other, it's just, they're so cute. And it's not even that overly lovey-dovey. They're just they have such insane chemistry, and yeah, they're like a definitive movie couple in the history of cinema. Like, seriously, like the classic pairings of actors and actresses going back. Well, just
and Kate Winslet has 2.
Yeah, she has Leo and she has Jim, but she didn't feel the need to go make another movie with Jim where they move house, and that's difficult. I don't know what happens in Revolutionary Road. Anyway.
Maybe Kate Winslet's going to show up in season 2 of Kidding. I don't think she will, but...
She does what she wants. Anyway, a lovely movie, another like indie as fuck movie.
I mean, like, get ready for the trend of Ben's movies being indie as fuck, because...
I really love to gently mock indie movies, but I really do like them. So we mock because we love is my...
Actually, I've just looked at my list, and most of my movies coming up are like hyper-masculine kind of movies.
Yeah, but then
apart from one. The next movie we're doing is not a hyper-masculine, but a lot of the ones I'm doing are like hyper-masculine, that maybe grappling with that stuff.
Well, your 2010s are indie as fuck and feminist as fuck, I feel. But, as you said, our next movie is not hyper-masculine. I mean, there's a lot of masculinity in there. It's Brokeback Mountain, because Benjamin is a coward and did not stick to his original pick for what was going to be next. And A History of Violence was downvoted, so next it will be Brokeback Mountain. Brokeback Mountain was always on the list, let's make that clear.
Yeah, Brokeback Mountain was never not on the list.
Yeah.
It wasn't, like, at one point there was like, do we want to do Crouching Tiger or do we want to do Brokeback? But I put my foot down for Brokeback because we get to discuss Crash if we do Brokeback. Fuck Crash.
There's your preview for next week, everybody. Go to IntoTheRealWorld.com. Like, comment, subscribe. Just write the words fuck Crash on every post. Do ones on, like, the superhero pantheon where they're just completely taken aback and they're like, I agree, but why?
So, I mean, have we had any disagreements to any movies we've picked so far? Is our most controversial episode so far Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah, pick and Catch Me If You Can over AI. I feel there's a polite silence to things like Training Day and Ocean's 11. But, you know, I think most people really like Memento and Almost Famous. And
I can't wait, because, I mean, like, if you saw the poll, the last movie we're now doing for the miniseries is Zombieland.
Fuck yeah, it is.
We are going to get so many complaints from film people who listen to this going like, why the fuck are you doing Zombieland as a history of Ireland?
I refuse to close the series on something not as fun as that, quite frankly.
That's fine, but my counterpoint to that is I said that we could do Zombieland 1 and 2 as like a double feature separate to this.
I'm terrified Zombieland 2 is going to be really, really bad.
Ruben Fleischer has not directed a good movie since he did Zombieland.
No, Venom fucking sucks, and you should listen to that on IntoTheRealWorld.com if you go to Big Spidears. Me and Mike Thomas tear apart Venom, but like keep coming back to it's okay, but I don't think it's okay. I want to stress it's not okay. But that's on the site, and until next time, Benjamin, in a mix.
We're doing Ben movies now. We've got like in the next like 4 weeks there's 3 Ben movies.
So as we're doing Ben movies, does that mean you can more definitively declare whether or not there will be movies?
There are at least 3 movies that I like coming up in the next few weeks.
There are at least 3 movies, the name of this podcast. Goodbye, everyone.